Hey there. So this is Juna here, and I'm a coach. I'm an intuitive. And what I want to explore a little bit about today is the idea of resistance. So I just got off a coaching call with a client, and some resistance bubbled up for him. And so we started to flesh it out and explore it a little bit. And in the past, when I worked with clients or had experiences with partners where resistance came up for myself or for them, normally I would do whatever I could to just push through it and get through resistance. And so, first, maybe let's just unpack a little bit about what resistance is. In my experience, resistance is fear. Resistance is I'm afraid of what's happening right now. I'm confused. I'm uncertain. I don't have a roadmap for how to go forward with this. I don't feel safe. And so a lot of resistance in my experience is essentially fear. And with this particular client, what I noticed when his resistance came up in the session was immediately my little good coach brain wanted to support him in plowing through his resistance and getting to the other side because we're going in a good direction. And instead, what I did was I paused. And I said, Juno, come on, let's give some space for his resistance here. Because in my experience, when we take the time to get to know our resistance, create a little bit more relationship with it, then the steps that we want to take going forward are that much more sustainable. And we're not actually cleverly finding ways to move against ourselves. And so we took some time with his resistance, and in the moment, I thought of this method to guide him through that I wanted to share a little bit here, and I'm curious your thoughts on it and any additions you might want to add to it. But the first thing that I did with him when his resistance came up, when his fear came up about some of the things we were exploring around the steps he was going to be taking over these next 6 months, the first thing I did was I said, let's personify your resistance for a moment. Let's see your resistance as a little child. And the reason why I love to personify things, I'm a huge fan of it, is that it helps us create a little bit of space between ourselves and the thing, the resistance. And even having that much space between us and something else helps us see it clearly. So I helped him personify his resistance as a little boy. And also in my experience, resistance, a lot of it can derive from core wounds, a lot of them that were perhaps formed when we were a child. So it makes sense to me to also see resistance as a young child. The second thing that we did together was I had him hold his resistance. So to imagine this little boy that was afraid of some of the big steps he's taking, some of the radical changes he's making in his life, and to have him hold this little boy. And again, when it's a child, it's pretty easy to generate some compassion, some love for this child. And so he took some time just to give it that present loving attention. The third thing he did was he gave his resistance space to speak, to share. And so one thing I asked him is, if your resistance could say anything right now, what does it want to say to you? What does it want to just let out? And his resistance named a bunch of things that it's afraid of. It's afraid of, if I take this step, I'm not going to have money. If I take this step, I'm going to lose people I love. If I take this big step, people are going to not like me and I'm going to lose a lot of friends. And so we gave his resistance some airtime, which is something that a lot of us, I think, when resistance comes up, we don't give it airtime. We want to just stuff it. We want to just change it. We want to just say, no, you're wrong, resistance. So to give it that loving space, that compassion, that presence, as well as airtime is huge. The fourth thing that we did together was, and I think this is a really important one, is we reminded his resistance, this little boy, that he's an adult now, that he's no longer a little boy. And as I said before, I think in my experience, a lot of these core fears come from a really young place. a part of us that was a child that wasn't fully capable in the world. And so, in my experience, when we give our resistance, we share with our resistance, hey, I'm actually an adult now, I'm capable now, I have resources, I have the ability to reach out for support, I have the ability to communicate my needs. Something locks in for those young parts. And so that feels like a key piece. And the fifth step we took was we asked his resistance. We asked this little boy, hey, if I am to go ahead and take these steps, what can I do that's going to make you feel really good as I take these steps? What can I do in my life? What changes can I make? What things can I add to my life right now that's going to help you feel really on board with me taking these steps? And I love those questions because I think it's a way of really enrolling our resistance as we step forward, as opposed to trying to bypass our resistance, which, as many of you experienced, myself included, it doesn't really work that way. Because our resistance will creep back in and sabotage. So that's my little 5-step process. I just created it. I'd be curious to hear any of your thoughts or additions here. I think one of my favorite things is creating things, playing with ideas, seeing what works, and continuing to learn in a more public forum like this. So thank you for watching, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.